A Mochi moment from Mark, who writes, I just want to thank you for making GLP-1s affordable. What would have been over $1,000 a month is just $99 a month with Mochi. Money shouldn't be a barrier to healthy weight. 3 months in, and I have smaller jeans and a bigger wallet. You're the best. Thanks, Mark. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Mark is a Mochi member compensated for his story.
This holiday, give the gift that says, let's cancel plans and just lounge. MeUndies has dropped a new holiday collection, and it's made for maximum cozy. We're talking soft as snow ultramodal fabric, festive prints, and loungewear so comfy your couch might get jealous. Onesies, hoodies, joggers, even delightfully quirky holiday designs. You're welcome. Knock out all your holiday gifting needs with deals up to 60% off at MeUndies.com/comfort. Enter promo code COMFORT. That's MeUndies.com/comfort, code COMFORT.
Welcome to Radical Personal Finance, a show dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, skills, insight, and encouragement you need to live a rich and meaningful life now while building a plan for financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Joshua Sheets. Today is Friday, October 24, 2025. And on this Friday, we record live Q&A. You can call in, speak about anything that you want, ask any questions, raise any topics. This is a great chance for you to give feedback on the show, for you to ask questions about your personal life, for you to raise any topic that you would like to chat about with me and with the audience. If you would like to join one of these Friday Q&A shows, you can do so by becoming a patron of the show. Go to patreon.com/radicalpersonalfinance, patreon.com/radicalpersonalfinance. Sign up to support the show there, and you will gain access to one of these Friday shows. Jose, welcome to the show. How can I serve you today?
Thanks. Good afternoon, Joshua.
And to you.
It's been a while since we spoke. This question's not the worst problem to have, but we've earned a decent amount more than we normally earn in a year. And so I'm looking for some ideas to decrease my tax obligation for the year. I am meeting with the CPA next week to discuss this, but I don't know if he's very radical. So I wanted to get maybe some radical ideas out of you, just different things to think about before the end of the year.
Are you an employee or do you own a business?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, self-employed business is set up as an S Corp.
Okay. And the extra money that you have made, how did it come about? Was it, and do you expect it to continue in the future?
Yeah, it's kind of a variable business, real estate investments, and there's just some years that are significantly better than others. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I should expect this every year, but hopefully not losing years like last again.
Okay. And how much total will your income be for this year as your best guess? And how much more is that than you're accustomed to?
So this year will probably be somewhere in the low to mid 400,000.
Okay.
And that's probably about twice average.
Okay, cool. So let's just go through the list. First of all, it's good that you're working on this on October. You don't have a ton of time, but you do have time, and that's a good thing. So first and foremost, do you have a retirement account set up, and do you max your contributions there?
Yeah. Yep. We got that set up. And the self-employed stuff actually is helpful with that for stuff like solo 401k.
And how much will you put in there this year? Total contributions?
I'm going to try to max it out this year. Again, that kind of depends on the year where I'm at. And I think I can do up to 70,000 with that.
Yep. So a little bit more than 70,000. All right. So good. So you'll get 70,000 in there. Now, is your wife also part of the business?
No.
Okay.
But potentially she could be if that would be helpful. But as of now, no.
Okay. If she can be a legitimate employee, doing something legitimate, right? No games. There's a little bit of flexibility, but if she can be, if you can make her a legitimate employee of the business and she can earn a significant amount of money, all of which goes into your solo 401k, then that also could protect another $70,000. So having a husband and wife who are both employees of the business and putting money into a 401k account up to 70 grand for each of them is a really good move. Now check the formula and see. But if you get that account opened and if you can clarify what she's being paid for here in the fourth quarter, then that can work. Now, remember, 401k contributions have to be made before the end of the calendar year. So that means that you got to get on this right now. But if there's something that she can do for the company during the last couple of years, or there's some kind of services that, be careful with my words, if there's something that she can do for the company during Q4 that she can earn money for, then that money can go into her solo 401k up to potentially about $70,000. And she should be able to put virtually all of her wages into that here in Q4. So that would be the first thing. Now, if that doesn't, that would be the first thing, and that would be the best plan. The reason I'm hedging is we go back and forth between a solo 401k and a SEP IRA. One of the benefits of the SEP IRA is that you can make your contributions at the end of the year based upon earnings for the prior year. So this is where it would get a little bit complex as far as her ownership position in the business and how much she makes. But look carefully. If you're talking with your accountant, talk with your accountant about your solo 401k plan and think about a SEP IRA plan. And then think about what her ownership in the business is or should be compared to the wages that she earns for work that she's doing for the business. So that would be the first thing. Maximizing retirement account contributions is always kind of the easy button. That is your best opportunity. Now, the second thing will be, is there investment that you can make into the business? Now, you already know this, but now that you've had this $400,000 year, is there something you could do, and up to and including spending money, is there something that you could do to increase the probability that 2026 is a $400,000 year?
You're saying like expenses that I could take now, to decrease this year's income that would pay for themselves back? Is that?
That's not what I'm trying to say. That's the thing I'm going to say in a moment. But what I'm trying to say is so here's the issue with tax planning. We get all wrapped up in it because it's super annoying to pay taxes. But that's the deal we've made. That's where we're at. We all want to stay out of prison. So we pay the goons with the guns so we stay out of prison. It's as simple as that. And that's a good move. At the end of the day, we want to make more money. There's no such thing as a 100% tax rate. So we want to make more money. So if you made $400,000 in 2025, then I don't see any reason why you can't make $400,000 in 2026. And I don't see any reason why, if you went from 200 to 400, why you can't go from 400 to 600. So before we worry about tax planning, we want to try to understand what happened. Why did we make more money? And how could we do more of this? Now, that's beyond the scope of what we're going to get into on this call, but that's what I want you to be thinking about is what happened? Where did this big client come from? Or where did this big contract come from? Or where did the unexpected revenue come from? And is there a way that we could repeat it? And once you get clear on that, then we'll go and we'll say, well, could we spend money to make it much more likely that we could repeat it? Right? So what could you do, or what did you do that made this 400,000 happen this year? And could it be repeated in 2026?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. We kind of changed the business plan around a little bit this year, hoping to do, and I actually knew you were going to say something about, hey, let's keep it high. I listened to you enough to know that's the angle you were gonna go. But part of it was because some of my projects are multi-year projects, and this one of the projects I sold this year, I just had been working on for a few years. And so I knew ahead of time, I didn't know when I would sell it, but I knew ahead of time that I would have a bigger bump the year that I sold it, or I'd hoped.
Okay. So I'm glad that my voice is banging in your head, because if you did something once, you can do it again. And so the question is not, what can I spend money on at the end of the year? But the question is, what can I invest in at the end of the year that could allow me to speed these things up? So if I delivered a project in 2025 that I wasn't sure if it was going to be for 2026, but I got it done in 2025, why? Did I do a better job making faster decisions? Did I hire more people? Did I do something special? And how could I spend money to make this go from delivering one project every other year to doing one project every year to doing 2 projects a year? Why was I able to deliver this project quicker? And that's where we want to look for spending money. Now, the obvious solution here, or the obvious thing I'm going here, is I'm looking at business expenses. And I'm saying, what are the business expenses that you can have this year and or that you can bring forward to this year? And that's where we're here in Q4, and that's an option. So it may be that you look around and you notice, you know what, our computers are 5 years old. We need a new set of computers for everybody. You may look around and say, we've been thinking about hiring a new team member, and now this is the time to go ahead and hire the new team member. If we could get the person recruited, we might pay the recruitment fee to a recruiter in Q4, and we have the money to pay that recruiter fee. We have then, we'll wind up paying for a month or 2 of getting this person trained, but then maybe by January, he or she might be useful to us and will be able to make money for us. And so thinking about what are the things that are going to make money is really key. And then after you've really identified that and looked for ways to spend money on that, then we look around and we say, are there other things that we've been wanting to do for a while? And so there's a few things. Number one is, so what we're doing here is we're dealing with a timing strategy. So a timing strategy is where we either push forward income to the future, or we pull it back to the present, or we push forward deductions to the future, or we pull them back to the present based upon what is most valuable for us. So your income here has been pulled forward. So into this year, we tried to push some of it into the future by talking about solo 401k retirement account contributions. Now we're looking for deductions, and we're saying, are there ordinary and necessary business expenses that can be pulled forward into this year that would otherwise, that I might otherwise have to make in a future year? And so some of those things that I like might be something like education or coaching. If you're an entrepreneur, I think you should have some form of coach or some form of entrepreneur education or some kind of program that you're working in. So that might cost you 10 grand, and you pay 10 grand and sign up here in November and December. But now you get yourself into a structured system where you're going to be really enhancing your team and be much more productive in the next year. And that 10 grand may pay off, 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 times over if you have the right solution, the right coach, you find the right person that you might be able to spend money on. If you look for equipment that needs to be purchased, you can expense a good amount of equipment, especially now that the expense the deductions are enormous for being able to expense things. Or you might just go ahead and start getting the kind of equipment that your business needs that will improve things for the future. You might look around, and the classic is always trying to say, well, can I buy some advertising? Right? Can I go ahead and commit to a contract now and go ahead and pay the money for advertising, and that's going to run through Q1. And that's going to pay off for me. So you're basically looking through all of the expenses and you're trying to say, what can I pull forward to this year that's going to make sense for me? And anything that you can accelerate into this year will reduce your taxable burden this year. And if you know that, if you expect your income to be back down to 200 next year, then those deductions are more valuable this year than they are next year. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
You might also look then to see any of your Q4 income, if there's anything that you can kind of defer a little bit. So you might slow walk some of your invoices, right? Well, I could invoice that big project here on December 20th, but as it happens, I was out of town for Christmas and I didn't get that invoice sent out until January 2. That's okay. Good client, he'll go ahead and pay. But that may reduce some of your income for December in some other way. Turning to your personal life, you want to try to group together any personal deductions that you're going to make. And so if there have been anything that might I would guess if you normally take a standard deduction, you might look around and you might say, well, if I itemize deductions, can I put together enough expenses that would cause me to be able to take a larger itemized deduction? So that might be your mortgage interest. You may have medical bills, or maybe medical things that are undone that you've been wanting to do. 3 of your children need braces and the other 2, need something else. And so you go ahead and make those, and those may be deductible. These are all small time things, but it could add up to be significant. Then we move to don't forget, by the way, we skipped over other kinds of educational accounts. So if you have access to a health savings account, make sure you get that money in there and don't miss that. 529 accounts don't give you a federal income tax deduction, but if you live in a state that imposes income taxes, you may get a state tax deduction for 529 contributions, and that's useful. Then turn to your charitable contributions as well. And so what you may do is you may make significant charitable contributions. And if you don't, and you may not want them all to go out now, but what you might do is, let's say you have an extra $50,000, and let's say that you normally tithe, $2,000 a month. Well, $50,000 would represent 2 years worth of your normal charitable giving. So if you go ahead and make a $50,000 contribution in December to a donor advised fund that you can then filter, then you'll be able to take your charitable deduction now, but then the money will filter out to the church or charity that you're supporting in the future, but you can take your charitable deduction now. And so that's also a good way is to lump together your charitable contributions in the year in which you need those deductions. So then next year you might not deduct any money at all because your income has dropped back to 200 and you don't need those deductions then.
Yeah, those are a whole bunch of great points. I'm taking notes here. Yeah, this is great.
Good. So what I would do is talk to your accountant. I would spend a little bit of time with a good AI bot. So any of them will work for this, but just run through and say, give it a prompt. So here's what you do is pull up an AI bot. Tell it, I need you to be my world-class tax advisor. Write me a prompt that will cause you to tell me how to reduce my taxes on all of these, the significantly higher income that I've had for this year. And let the AI bot write a prompt for you. And then after you get that prompt back, then go ahead step by step and work with the AI chatbot to identify any personal things that are personally applicable for you. And so if you'll create the prompt correctly, it can basically be your tax coach, and it can walk you through in detail all of these things. Let me give you just my framework that I use on this stuff. Been using it for a decade, but they're all tax strategies fall into 3 categories. And this was like episode 7 or something of the podcast that I taught this. And so there are income shifting strategies, there are income timing strategies, and there are income conversion strategies. These are the only 3 these are the only 3 categories that exist. So let's start with timing, because we did that. So income timing strategies, we're either pushing income to the future. So that's where I said, yeah, maybe you get to that invoice for your client on January 2 instead of on December 20. That's it. We're pushing income to the next year. Or we're bringing income to the present. So income, sometimes it's advantageous to push it to the future, or sometimes advantageous to bring it to the present. Then deductions, sometimes we're pushing those to the future, but then all the strategies that I talked about bringing the deductions up till now are all part of that strategy. Is we're trying to say, how can you bring any expense forward that's going to make you money in the next year? How can you bring it forward to this year? So those are income timing strategies. Income shifting strategies is where we're trying to move money from a high tax rate taxpayer to a low tax rate taxpayer. Now you have an S corporation, which is a flow through entity. So we're not trying to split between corporate income and personal income. However, that was partly the strategy of bringing in your wife to work for you. You may employ your children in December for some special work, something like that. Now, it may not be a huge amount, but $10,000 or $15,000 over the course of December that your children, that is a deductible expense to your business that then flows $2,000 to each of your children, that will go to them basically tax-free, and you've eliminated the tax on, $10,000 if you have 5 children or whatever the numbers wind up being. Now you can take that and you can you can match them and make a Roth IRA contribution for them, which is pretty sweet. And so if you can come up with a project here, you still got 2 months. If you can come up with some projects and some work that your children can do that is legitimate and you can document and all that stuff, then that will help you to be able to shift some of the income from you, who is currently a high income tax rate taxpayer, to your children who are low tax rate taxpayers. Similarly, your wife also part of that. And then finally, income conversion strategies tie into basically how do we take high tax forms of income and turn it into lower tax forms of income. So instead of generating realized income for this year, how can we create capital gains that will not be realized until much in the future? Instead of having tax that is owed at ordinary income tax rates or at dividend rates, how can we pay tax at capital gains tax rates in the future? And so thinking through how you make money and looking at your business and saying, you know what, ordinarily those clients normally have been paying us when we invoice them and they've been paying us cash. But if we flip this around and we set up some kind of joint venture, then I could generate the value in a capital gains context rather than in current cash. And I don't need the extra cash. And so if I could move 100 out of the 400 out of ordinary income, or earned income rather, if I could move this 100 of this 400 from earned income to capital gains appreciation, then I can convert some of my income generation to a lower tax rate type of activity. So for every business, there's dozens and dozens of things within that, but those are those categories that I go through mentally: income shifting, income timing, and income conversion. And if you look at all of them consistently over time, then that's how you're going to do your best job to get as low a tax bill as possible.
Awesome. That's great.
Right.
And then just one more comment that I wanted to ask for a future episode, and then you actually brought it up, is AI. What do you think about maybe doing a full episode for us on having AI work for us from a radical?
All right. I will write it down, and I'm better at writing down episode ideas than I am at delivering them. So let me not miss the moment and just give you basically what I will tell you about using AI. First of all, the way to learn AI is to use AI. And so I use ChatGPT primarily. I use Grok a decent amount, and I play with a few others from time to time, just that each one has its own strength and has its own weakness. It's hard to explain to somebody how and where AI is going to be useful to that person or to that business until or unless you have a sense of what the capacities are. And the capabilities of the AI engines change so frequently that, if it's been 2 months, you wonder, hey, I wonder if that could do that now. Oh, yep, look, it can do this thing that it failed at 2 months ago. So it's worth it to stay current on it. So the first thing I would do is just start using AI and start seeing where it's useful for you and where it's not. And if you do that, you'll start to have ideas about how you could use it. The second thing to do is you've got to learn how to prompt. And the secret to really great prompts is to get the AI to write your prompt for you. So everything with AI comes down to having an effective prompt. But it's difficult to learn how to do effective prompts until you've done a lot of prompts. And the fastest way to create the prompt is to have the AI engine create the prompt for you in the style that you like. So that was what I taught you when I was describing. If you want AI to be a world-class tax advisor for you, then what you do is your first prompt is write a prompt for me that will cause you to be my world-class tax advisor. And then it'll write that prompt for you, and then you feed it in information. And so so there's a little bit of data risk always, that we're always in this very difficult catch-22 situation where do I feed it the data and it knows everything about me, and then we're heading for a dystopia, or do I not feed it the data and get inferior results? But you got to feed it the data. And so what you can do is take a couple years of tax returns, go ahead and what's it called? Excise, take out, block. I forget the name that for covering up the personal data, right? Take out to go on your computer, put in little black boxes, highlight it with a Sharpie or whatever. But take a couple years of tax returns and take a couple years of your expense statements from your business and load it in so that it has the data for your business. And then with that data, have it write you a prompt about, I want you to be my tax advisor, and here's the data for me and my business. I want you to go through very carefully and teach me about each of the different categories that I might consider that I might not be using to lower my taxes and increase my profitability. By the way, you can do this with marketing consulting. You can do this with tax reduction. You can do this with all kinds of things. And the answers that you get, some of them are going to be good and some of them are going to be bad. Just like the answers you get from me. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. But what you get a lot better with AI is you get broad, comprehensive feedback of basically covering all the categories that you might want to cover. So you're asking me a question extemporaneously. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, let me go through as many ideas as I can, but AI has many more ideas than I do. And you just say, yep, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Then the other aspect to the prompting is you've got to figure out what kind of format works well for you. And what I mean by that is, do you want to have a conversational format where you speak to the AI bot back and forth and it keeps you on track? Or do you want it to write you a report that you just read later on? I've done both, and both are useful. So I'll frequently have it just write a report for me. I do a lot of deep research prompts and have the AI bot collect information for me, and then I just read through those reports. But on the other hand, I will often make the AI bot keep me on track. And I'll use language. I'll say, listen, I've got ADD. I can't stay on track. So I need you to keep me on track and always circle back to the next question. And so what you can do is you can engage in a back and forth discussion with the AI bot, and it will continually lead you forward so you're not stuck. Back and forth. So that would be my second big suggestion so first is have the AI create the prompts for you. Number two is have it create the kind of prompt that you think will work best for you. And then number three, I had a really great number three and it just went away.
And maybe you could ask ChatGPT what you're
going to say. So here's the flip. I was going to make the joke, and now that you brought it up, I'll make the joke. So the problem is that using AI makes us stupider, because anytime we don't use our brain starts to atrophy and get weak. And so if we use AI to do things for us, like do our thinking for us, we lose the ability to recall the information. So this is why you should not use AI to do writing for you. You should use AI. I think the best use of AI is for like simple data tasks, manipulation of data, and also information. So it's I use it as a really, really efficient search engine that I can create information for myself in a way that is customized to me. But I don't want to use it to try to recall things because I want to keep my brain sharp. And so that's kind of the flaw, is that if you use AI too much, you lose your thinking ability. And so we've got to learn how to use the tools for what they're good at. Anyway, number three was brilliant. It was really good. But that'll have to wait for another time. So thanks for the fun question.
Thanks, Joshua. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right, move on to Dan. Dan, welcome to the show. How can I serve you today?
Hello, Joshua. Can you hear me?
Sounds good. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, so I haven't really polished off one question, but I'll just give you a bit of background and then a couple questions I've written up, and I suspect you'll go for the family planning one, but yeah, I'll start with background.
Go ahead.
So yeah, about a year ago, I got a recent promotion that was unexpected into some full-time work that's going well. I enjoy the job, good salary. I recently bought a rental property at the start of this year. Things are going well with my girlfriend. We're living together, talking about marriage, children. Kind of feel like we're on that coast fire level. Um, so yeah, life is just kind of going well and pretty easy. And I'm just worried about getting complacent and like since I've achieved many of my goals, just how to set goals for the next phase of life. So some of my questions: should I start a side hustle, kind of a niche part-time thing maybe? How can I be more productive in an office setting? I went from field work into some office work, and that's been an adjustment. And then when do I buy a second rental property? I can pull a down payment out of some stocks and go for that. Um, and then yeah, so now to the family planning one. We both like our jobs. My partner likes her job maybe a little bit more and would be more keen on getting back to the workforce. I'm pretty passionate about homeschooling when the time comes. So I would like one of us to stay home. Right now, my assumption is that she would go back to work, but I want to give her the option to stay home if that's what she chooses. So yeah, how would we go about that decision making? How does that timeline after a child work? Yeah, what would you recommend for a mat leave and probably both a mat leave and a pat leave together? Yeah, any of those questions jump out at you as interesting?
Well, of course, all of them are, and there's lots of interesting discussion here. How old are you currently, Dan?
32.
Okay. So why did you think I was going to go for the family planning discussion, as you called it?
Yeah, you just released a fair bit of content on it, and then you stated that, yeah, like seeking enhanced investment returns is no longer interesting to you, and your impact on the world is interesting to you. Um, and yeah, your goal of helping shape. You stated that you're targeting men. So yeah, helping young men succeed in life is you made some statements that's more of a goal of yours
right
now.
Right. Excellent. What do you expect that with regard to, so you've talked about why, I've asked you why you think I'm going to start, I would begin there. Now, what do you expect me to say to you about family planning?
Don't have many expectations. Give yourself lots of options. Um, yeah, you try to prepare your best you can, because once you're in it, you're in it.
Okay. How long have you and your girlfriend been together? Okay. And are you going to marry her? Why are you not yet married?
She's had some hesitations. To be honest, you got me in a little bit of trouble 2 years ago. I listened to your podcast on the declining birth rate, and how women are expected to have degrees and careers and houses before they have children, and that's a bit of an unrealistic expectation. So yeah, I called her after work and said, "Hey, we got to talk about family planning, and like I think we really should get the ball rolling on this." And she was like, "Yeah, no, way too early for this call." So yeah, I mean we're definitely enjoying our lives right now without the responsibility. Yeah, so just I'd say some hesitation on.
So
yeah, a little bit more on.
When you're using the term family planning, it sounds like you're meaning that as in having babies. Is that right?
Yeah, that. Sorry, yeah, I may have. Yeah,
okay.
After child for who would return to the
Right,
workforce
right,
and
right.
who would be the lead
Okay.
caregiver. But yeah,
How old is your girlfriend?
32.
Okay. When I said, why are you not married yet? You said that, well, you started to give an answer, but then the answer went to having babies. So let me ask the question again. Why are you not married yet?
Yeah, I would say for both of us, like a big part of getting married is to have a stable household to raise children. And I mean, currently, um, yeah, we're each proud of our separate finances. Um, we have no problem living together, unmarried. So there's not. I feel like until we're thinking about children, there's not a huge difference in our lives between married and unmarried. I definitely, um, in one of your episodes about marriage, like you said, just like it's comforting to be married together, and part of that, yeah, I do see that. But yeah, life's pretty good right now. We're enjoying not having a ton of responsibilities, and yeah.
Okay. And why do you so you clearly want to have a child, is that right?
That's right.
All right. Does your girlfriend want to have a child?
So yeah, I've scared her off where she's had to pump the brakes a bit. She's not 100%. But yeah, certainly leading that way
Okay,
more and
so
more.
she's leaning towards having a child.
Correct.
Okay. Now, why is she slow? Like, why did what you said scare her from her perspective? Like why would you, if I asked her, listen, Dan came along and he said, I'm excited about having a baby with you someday. Why was she scared by that?
Just because like we enjoy traveling and no responsibilities. And yeah, a few more years of just, and I mean, even traveling with a bit more money. We traveled in our early 20s, but that was a bit different. So traveling as a couple on a paid vacation with a full-time job, that's a new lifestyle for us. So we're certainly enjoying that lifestyle.
Okay. How will you know, or how will she know when she has traveled enough to have a baby?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So I'd encourage you after this call that one of the most important things you can do is write that question down and you think about it. I'm not sure you should ask it to her. We certainly don't want her to think that there's, a wacko guy on a podcast who's now I'm going to go crazy. Like you need to take, whenever you hear good advice, you need to take that and you need to filter it through you, because whatever you ask her needs to come from you. But I'm trying to get to what I see as the heart of the matter. And I'll explain in a moment why you correctly predicted that I would go to the family planning question, and why that, I believe, of all of these things that you have said, why that is the fundamentally important, most important thing of this list of wonderful things that you gave me, of ideas. But regardless, what you need to understand for you as a man is this: you want to have a child. You've said that clearly. You might want to have multiple children. You probably don't know that today. And so I'll tell you, as a man who is older than you, who has multiple children, I have never met a man who, once he has a child or two, who has regretted having several babies. So you may or may not want to have 5. I certainly would never have said I wanted to have 5 when I didn't ever have 1. I didn't say that, even when I had one, because every baby feels a little bit overwhelming. But as a man, one of the most powerful goals that happens is as you start to build a family, you start to gain a vision for the future that is radically different than the vision for the future that you have before you have children. Having children changes a man in almost inexpressible ways. And it changes all of your life goals, it changes all of your perspectives, and it's awesome. It is fantastic. I love it. Virtually all men love it. Now, I'm aware that a lot of men over the years have abandoned their families. I don't spend any time with those men. I know they're out there, but I don't spend any time with those men. So I just kind of assume that when people listen to me for at least a few podcast episodes, if they're still here, they're probably not the kind of men that are going to abandon their wife and children and run away. And I don't know why they do that. But I know for every single man I know and every man I talk to, this becomes one of the most important and most profoundly important things of your life. And so you have expressed to me that I want to have a baby, at least one, at least sometime. Now, your girlfriend is not so sure. She sounds like she's kind of coming around to that position, or she's open to it, but she's not so sure. Now, we can talk about female psychology. I think most women tend to want to have a baby. That's not a universal experience, or at least what the studies that I look at, if they're true, it doesn't seem to be universal, but it seems to be very, very strong. Just yesterday, I was reading a report. I forget which newspaper it was, but it was a report about dating sites in the so-called casual or I forget the name for it. Anyway, it was a story about sperm donation sites or sperm donation forums, or I want to say fora where people are trying to find sperm donors outside of the clinical system. And basically what happens, the story was from the UK, is you have a bunch of single women who want to have a baby, and they've decided that they're not going to wait around for a man to have a baby. And so they are looking for sperm donors. But the sperm donation, where usually when we use that term, it involves some kind of clinically understood thing. But in this case, they're actually forums where we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. Let's get horizontal and donate the sperm in the old-fashioned way to conceive a baby. But yet they're trying to do it without any kind of relationship because they want to do that. I first experienced this. I have had two clients over the years, two female clients that have both done exactly this. They could not find a man, and they went and had a baby because they wanted to raise a baby. And that really surprised me because I spent my whole life, thinking that like single mothers, we really shouldn't be encouraging single moms and teenage pregnancies and all that. And all of a sudden, here I am talking to these seeming, I didn't really see them, but seemingly smart, successful, really cool, like women that are in their 30s, and they're not able to find a man that they want to be in a relationship with to have a baby. So they just kind of get tired of waiting around and they go and have a baby through means that they themselves arrange. So what I'm saying is that I think most women do come around to wanting to have a baby, and they come around to that especially if a man is the kind of man that they want to have a baby with. Now, I'm not criticizing her, and there's a kind of a minor point, and it's fairly sensitive, but if a woman doesn't want to have your baby, then that's a yellow flag. If she's not relatively open to like, yeah, I want to have your babies, I think women look at a man and they usually say, well, do I want to have this man's baby or not? And if she doesn't want to have your baby, then that's a kind of a yellow flag, and that's something that you should pay attention to. Now, back to the point. Why are we talking about this on a finance podcast? Because of everything that you said on your list, there is only one thing that has to happen now. You asked me, should I start a side hustle? Sure. If you've got time and you want to make more money, go start a side hustle. Done. What should I do to be more productive in the office environment because I moved from the environment? Well, work harder, learn some tools. Done, right? You can do that anytime. You can be productive this year. You can be productive 10 years from now. That's done, doing endable. When should I buy a second rental? When you have enough money and you find a good deal and you decide that that's the best investment. Done. Answered the question. Then we get to this family planning thing. Well, all of a sudden now, we can't just snap our fingers and do it, because this involves another person. This involves you, and it involves a woman, preferably your wife, because that's what you're looking to build. Now, we can't just snap our fingers and buy wives. Now, I'm not opposed to that. I actually, years ago when I was young, when I was selling life insurance, I had a client who had purchased, quote unquote, a mail order bride from the Philippines. And I thought that was the craziest thing in the world until I spent various hours with him and just saw how head over heels in love with this woman he was, and how thrilled he was, and how happy she was. And I was like, oh, wow, I guess buying a wife, I wouldn't have thought that was a good move, but for this guy, it worked out great, and she's thrilled, and all of a sudden my perspective changed. So when I use that phrase, it's kind of a joke. But let's just assume you can't buy a wife, right? You've got to attract a wife. And when we're dealing with attraction here, we're dealing with a very different scenario. And we're dealing with something that we can't just push and control. We're dealing with humans and human psychology, and humans that have desires, and humans that have preferences. And since marriage must be voluntary, or it's not marriage, then we're working with something that we can't just manipulate and control the way that many times men would like to do. Okay? And your reason for wanting a wife, the only reason that you stated, is that you want to have a baby, right? You're getting all the benefits of a wife now. She shares your bed. She goes on airplanes with you. You always have fun. You always have companionship. It's great. You have no responsibility. You can sleep late on Saturday morning. You can go for brunch with the guys and the girls, and you can travel first class to Europe whenever you want. Life is cool. Except you want to have a baby, which means that we've got to figure that out. Now, the problem is that at 32 years old, your girlfriend is past the age at which it is easy for her to have babies. And if she's going to have your babies, she's probably got about 5 to 10 years from now in which she can have a baby. By the age of 30, a woman has lost something like, I forget the egg count is a shocking statistic, but is it 90% of her eggs? I'll look it up in a moment. But she's lost about 90% of her reproductive capacity by age 30. And once you get into your 30s, conceiving babies is no longer automatic and easy, and birthing babies is no longer automatic and easy. Now, for some women, it is. For some women, it's not that difficult. My wife and I just had a baby. My wife is 40. Everything went great. It was fine. It wasn't very easy to conceive that baby now that we're both 40. It was difficult. It wasn't as automatic as it was when we were in our 20s. So what is happening is we have a clock that's ticking, and you have desires for something, but we're not even sure that this particular girl wants to have your babies. And you can't force her. That would be immoral and wrong. You can't force her to have your babies. And so she might be coming around, but when is she going to come around? You've got to find out very quickly when she's going to come around. If she's 32 and she says, oh, we're going to go and travel and do this thing. Okay, where do you want to go and when do you want to go there? Right? My wife and I didn't have a baby for our first year of marriage. We had one specific thing. We wanted to go on a ski trip. And that was the big thing that we wanted to do. I knew I would not be able to afford to take a big fancy ski vacation when we had babies. And so we spent all of our money on a fancy ski vacation of a week in Whistler together. And we did it. Now, she was a few weeks pregnant at the time, so it worked out. We barely made it, but we made it to Whistler. And that was our one thing that was on my mind and on her mind. I wanted to take her on a fancy ski vacation to Whistler. Cool. Done. So if there's like an actual list and she says, I've just always wanted to go to Venice. Well, bro, buy the tickets, get her to Venice in December. Well, that's not great. But anyway, get her to Venice now. Hopefully she wants to go somewhere warm in December. Get her to the place in December so we can check that off and all right, let's go. Now, here's the problem, right? If you goof around with this stuff, you wind up with very, very bad results. Right? You're not currently married. Most people, if they decide they're going to get engaged, most people, that's a multi-month process. Now, maybe you and you've been together for years. Hey, let's get engaged and we're super simple. 2 months from now, we're married. But for a lot of people, planning a wedding turns into a multi-year prospect. So now she's 34. and you're 34. And by the way, this is not all about her, because men's reproductive capacity declines enormously as well. It's not quite as cliff-ish as it is for women, but most men live under this idea, well, after all, 70-year-old men can have babies if they're with 30-year-old women, so I'm just good. No, you're not, buddy. Like, your reproductive capacity is declining as well. And so the years are going to tick by. So let's say it takes you a year to get married, and then you start trying to have a baby. Most people who've been on birth control for many years, or many people, let me not say most because I don't know if it is most, many people who've been on birth control for many years have a very difficult time conceiving children. Not all. Some people, some women, they tell the story, they came off birth control, and in the first month, boom, they were able to conceive a baby. But that's not always the case. And so even if you got after it, it's a good chance it's 2 more years before you have a baby. And then what happens is, there's not going to be any way that you're going to be able to have more than about 2 or 3 children, which may be all you want, which is cool, and that's fine, right? I've had lots of friends who've gotten married at 34 and had 1 or 2 children, and that's good. But the clock is ticking, is the point. And the clock is not ticking on anything else. The clock is ticking, and we're not even sure if she wants to have your baby. Now, here's what is difficult, okay? Every year that goes by, the reason I emphasize this stuff, and I was blind to this when I was younger, but as I've gotten older and I've talked with more people, I've seen a different thing. Recently, I was speaking with somebody. This was a man. I spoke at a conference. A month ago, recently, I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and I spoke at the Nomad Capitalist Live. I gave the opening keynote presentation. And I think there were, I'm not sure, 600 or 700 people. And I worked hard on my speech, and I was really proud of my speech. And my speech was called Hope for the Future. And I talked about, last year, I spoke at the same conference, and I talked about birth tourism. And this year, I talked about Hope for the Future, and I talked about how you can engage in international planning with each of your children, with throughout your children's lives in different ways and in different times. So I talked briefly about birth tourism, and I built this chart of this. I built this family, the Numerius family. I was pretty happy with my title. So I built the Numerius family, and they had 5 children. And I walked through this case study of this family of 5 children. Each of the 5 children born in a different country. They're Americans. They did birth tourism. They went to different parts of the world, different kinds, and I charted out this whole family tree. And the way that I ended the chart, or I ended it as I showed what is basically my hope and my plan to someday have 100 great-grandchildren. And I showed how the Numerius family had 5 children. If down through the years they had a fertility rate of 4 children, then the Numeriuses could be on the same track. We went down, and at the 5th or 7th generation, it was 10,000 descendants, something like that. And it from then went on to the millions. And I talked about kind of the meaning of that. And what I showed was this family in my case study that started out totally broke. In fact, I made a big point in my case study that they were super broke for the first decade of their life until they finally got serious about making money. And then they had good business success, and they made a lot of money in their late 30s and finally. But I pointed out that you have to have your babies probably when you can't afford them. And after the conference, I spent some time speaking with a man who really impacted me. And he said, after your talk, I had to go back to my hotel room and cry. He said, because I want that. That's what I want. And he told me a story, and he said he was 41 years old, and he said, I have made, and basically he's made a lot of money. He's trading money. He's a Canadian, gone abroad. He's moved out of Canada. He's made a lot of money, has millions of dollars. And he says, I cannot find a woman to marry. And it was just so sad, because here he is surrounded by females, but none of them are worthy of marriage in the Canadian context. So he'd gone abroad, and I spent most of the time talking with him. But here he is at 41, and he'd love to have 5 or 6 children. And he has all the money, he has millions and millions of dollars. He's totally financially independent for the rest of his life, living the globe-trotting international capitalist, nomad capitalist lifestyle. It's great. I loved kind of his international story. But he can't find a woman, and he's 41 years old. And so if he's able to have children, He probably won't have very many, and he'll be an older father, which is not easy, and the years are ticking by. I was blind to that when I was 22. I didn't have a plan. I wasn't strategizing. I just figured it all happens automatically. But man, you go through the years and you watch your friends go through this, and you watch your friends and the years go by, and I had a friend recently who finally, when he was 38, finally was able to find a woman and get married after a long string of difficult things. And then she didn't want to have babies. He was married to her for a couple of years and then came around, and now she's pregnant, and they're super excited and they're going to have a baby. And it's amazing when it happens. But this stuff, my point is that these are the desires that we have as human beings. This is what it means to be human. And so when I look at this, I'm going to be intense. Forgive me for a moment. But when I look at how ridiculous it is to say, I want to go travel, it's the stupidest thing in the world. Travel is easy. You swipe a credit card, you buy an airplane, you go to a hotel, you wander around the city, you drink coffee, you eat meals, you look at some things, you take some pictures, and you come home. It's not that great. And I say that as someone who's spent about 2 to 3 months a year over the last 5 years traveling every year. It ain't that great. It's wildly overrated. But it's also not something that you can only do at some certain point in your life. I took my wife and 5 children to 16 countries last year. All of the sites over the course of 2.5 months. I had way more fun showing my 6-year-old the Colosseum than any of the influencers there taking pictures with Instagram. I didn't put any pictures on Instagram, but I saw the wonder through my 6-year-old's face. And so this idea that travel is somehow like the be all end all, it's dumb. And I'm sorry, I'm not mad at you, Dan. I have promoted this myself, and now I feel ashamed of myself because it's as vapid and as silly as many other things. Now, you can gain a lot from travel, but you don't gain very much from it when you're saying, oh, we go to luxury hotels and we sit in it. It's fun. Yeah, cool. Go for it. I like to sit on airplanes. I've almost never seen an airplane I didn't want to get on, and I will continue to travel. But the idea that somehow this thing that anybody can buy for $5,000 takes priority over this thing that only a few people can build, to me is silly. And what you have to understand is that in human history, more than 50% of men have been genocided by never being able to reproduce. 80% of women throughout history, as far as we can tell, if I've got my data right, from the genetic record, over 80% of women have been able to successfully reproduce. But most men don't. And I use the word very carefully. By most, I mean greater than half. Most men don't. And they lead lives where they want to leave an impact on the world. They want to do something. They want to build a family. They want to take care of their wife. They want to see her happy and surrounded by babies and homeschooling. And yet they confront the modern world where she's saying, but I'd rather go to Venice, and I'd rather sit in a gondola with the 3,000 other tourists with my $42 a day tourist tax so we can tool around gondola, have this fake experience, and somehow take pictures and look cool to my friends. It's stupid. And yet most men are in that situation. And so for you, Dan, what I hear, the reason I go to family planning, as you put it, the reason I go to that is I say, buddy, the clock's ticking. All this other stuff is easy. All right, you've made money. You're on Coast 5. Wonderful. Check, 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 check. But in 10 years, in 8 years, you're going to be 40. In 8 years, you're going to be 40. And when you turn 40, you're going to recognize, I better get it in gear. And as somebody who is 40, I tell you that as I reflected intensely leading up to my 40th birthday, I don't have nearly as much money as I hoped to have when I was 40. Done okay. Had a lot of adventures. But basically, the thing that I take more pride in than anything else is the fact that I have good family relationships. I have a wife who loves me, and we have a rich and rewarding relationship. And I have a home full of children that are generally healthy, sort of kind of well-behaved some of the time, healthy, happy, and we have a great family life, and I can build for the future. Now, I'm all in right now on business mode. Like for me right now, I'm all in on business. I'm going to make more money over the next decade than I'm going to make massive amounts of money over the next decade. But the money is actually following the fact that I need more of it now. When I was younger, I had small financial goals because I couldn't see the point. I don't need fancy stuff. And so I wasn't just chasing after money. Now I have $50 million goals. I need $50 million. So I got to get busy and make it. So as the time goes, what the reason is always this basis of time-bound goals or money-bound goals. What is it? And is it time-bound goals or is it money-bound goals? And we always have to give priority to the time-bound goals because that's what we can't get back. Once your dad and your mom die, they ain't coming back. And so if it costs us money to go see them and build relationships with them, we prioritize that. If that means that we go and we again, the plane, whatever, you get the point, is that you can only see mom and dad while they're alive. Once they're dead, you can't see them anymore. So you go see them now. You can only have babies when you're young. And once you're not young, you can't have babies anymore. So you go and have babies and you do the stuff that you have to do when the time has to be done. And then the money, you keep working at the money. And most people don't get rich until their 50s and 60s. You've worked hard and you've gotten rich faster, which is great. But now you've got to hurry and add those other things into your life that money can't buy you. Because the truth is, as I tell you that story from that guy who spoke to me in Malaysia, if you are 40-something years old, and you're rich as anybody, but you're frustrated, you're going to have the same problems. And I turn now, sorry, I hope this is not too intense. I know it's intense, but I want to honestly share, and then you can take it, you can think about this. But here's the final thing, okay? The great problem that many men in your situation face is this question of what the modern woman is looking for. Now, it's unfair to women to characterize too broadly because it's the same like a modern man. I'm a modern man, but I don't reflect much of what I think people would say is popular modern culture. I'm not very normal. And so there's lots of women who are not normal. But be careful because what is happening is unless you are part of some unique cultural subgroup, as I am, right? A minority subgroup, usually religiously based, which is where I'm part of, that creates a very different culture. But modern mass woman is, I'm not sure how to say this, because I want to be careful but forthright and honest. And the point is that you can't force her to want to have a baby. And I don't think you should. But if she's 32 years old and she's not thrilled about having your baby, then buddy, either she better get serious quick or you need to go find someone who will. She can go and live her life. She's a strong, modern, independent woman. She has her own money. You guys are very proud about keeping your separate finances. She's kind of coast-fi, just like you're kind of coast-fi. So cool. Right? You can be friends, you can follow each other's stories, and she can go and do her thing. But if she doesn't want to have your baby, then by definition, she is disqualified from being your wife. Because as you stated, you don't see that there's much point of being married except having a baby. And so the clock is ticking. And so I don't think you should hang up the phone with me and then call her up and be super intense with her. I think you should take a month and think about what I've said here, and then in various ways find out. But you've got to find out, is she serious and is she in? And if she is, get after it or not, because it is much easier for you to find a different woman who wants to have your baby at 32 than it will be at 42. And so as the years go by, it gets harder and harder. And that's that's what I didn't see when I was younger. But now, from my perspective, having spoken to a lot of people, having had men share with me the pain that they have of being rich and being older and really wanting to get married and having a hard time, that's why I pressure it. So I've said a lot. I've probably said too much. I've probably been too intense, but that's why, Dan, is that you can't always just do this. It takes time to attract a woman. It takes time to find a woman that is the kind of woman that you would actually want to be married to, because it's far better to be unmarried than it is to be married to a horrible woman. you can either have that's why marriage is such high stakes, right? It can be a wonderful thing. And most married men who are happily married, which is basically all the people I know, they say it's one of the best things. I'm so glad not to be back on the other side of that. Or on the other hand, if you find and marry someone who is horrible, then everything in your life gets worse. And that's why, like, it is a high stakes decision. But I don't think it's something that we should run from just because it's high stakes. I think we should make careful, informed decisions and then press forward to them. So there's more I could say, but let me stop. I've said a lot. That's why you predicted accurately that I would go to it. To me, it is the obvious logical conclusion that when a man has a list of things that he wants to accomplish in his life, he has a list of businesses he'd like to begin, he's a list of investments he'd like to make, and he wants to have a baby, and he wants to get married, then what obviously has to go flying to the top of the list is marriage and baby, because we're here we're dealing with biological reality and cultural reality, whereas everything else, it doesn't matter if you do it when you're 30 or when you're 40 or when you're 50, there's always time to do that. Money is inexhaustible. You can always make more of it, but you can't make more time. So is that, forgive me for going I feel like I went too far, but is that helpful at all? Is that useful? What are your thoughts? What's your response?
Yeah, no, I can handle the intensity. I guess, to me, I'm hearing I have a communication challenge. I do think I'm hesitant to put words in her mouth. I do think she's stronger leaning this way, and I'm just due to how I've poorly communicated in the past. It can be sensitive for me to push too hard on some of those buttons. To get a final answer out of her.
In any kind of human, I'm interrupting you on purpose, right? Because I want to be careful out of respect for her. I don't think you should share too many details. This is a public format. And while, of course, you're anonymous and whatnot, it's just not appropriate to share intimate details about other people in this context. The general questions we've asked are good, but don't say any more, okay? About her, right? That's between you and her. I only want to talk about you. And so what I want to say is it is appropriate for you to engage with people over time. And I'll just share one personal story. And again, I try to be careful with some of my own personal stories, but I should have married my wife many years before I did. I met her when I was 20. We married when we were 26. I should have married her at 22 or 23. And today, if I were coaching a 20-year-old or a 23-year-old in a similar situation, I would be against what I did. What I mean is that I now see very clearly that if a man is not like moving towards marriage, then I think women need to have a very clear, so here we're flipping it, right? And I think this is culturally accurate, is that there are a lot of young men who are playing around with women, and the young men have no intention of getting married or having children. They're just enjoying hanging out with the women. And the women are spending some of the most valuable years of their life burning their youth and beauty on a guy who's not going anywhere. So I now would give the counsel to a young woman that if you're in a relationship with a guy, I'm not sure the exact number, but let's call it a year. If you're in a relationship with a guy for more than a year and this relationship is not clearly moving towards marriage, you need to bail. Because for all of the difficulties that I've described for young men, which as you stated is who I feel like are struggling right now a lot, it's much more difficult to be a 42-year-old unmarried woman who wants to marry than it is to be a man. It's straightforward that I can give the advice to a 42-year-old man. Listen, you can find a 30-year-old woman who's who you can marry, and they still have time to have babies. It's much harder for the 42-year-old woman. So I think that young women need to be super focused. And if you are in a relationship with a guy and he's burning years of your life in which you are young, sexy, beautiful, you can attract any man and are highly fertile and you have everything going for you, and he's just sitting here playing around and using you, he's using you for sex, he's using you for companionship, he's abusing you, and that's not appropriate. So my point is, in saying that, is that one of the things that I regret from my youth is that I should have married my wife when I was younger. Now, to be clear, I did not use her. I was confused. I was uncertain, and I wasn't sure, like, whether she was the one that I should marry or not. But I didn't have sex with her. I didn't abuse her. I didn't like restrain her or anything in that way. But the point was that I was still like unsure. And what I'm driving at is that there is an element in which you need a little bit of time, but not too much time. And so it takes time for people to change. Normally, you need diverse people who are very different will often come together. And in the beginning, they don't share the same things. And yet, after time, they start to desire the same things. Now, in the normal course, she should be responding to you and to your leadership. Most women will, over time, adapt themselves to the interests, the religion, the goals of the man that they love. And so if you're a strong man, and let's say she was totally different from you, after a few years, she can start to come around. And I don't think that that is a bad thing. I don't think that you should just say, well, you know what, 3 years ago, I kind of jumped the gun and, but today, she's come around to it. And that's where I want to always state, right? For a woman to choose to have your baby is a huge thing. She's extremely vulnerable. And once she has a baby, she never gets out of that, right? It's a lifelong commitment. The man can walk away and abandon her, and she still has to take care of this baby because she's a woman, and that's what women do. And so it is a very, very vulnerable thing. And so you have to build the trust and the reputation with her so that she's doing it. That's not done overnight. But you should take a hard look and basically say, where are we today and where are we likely to be in a year? So that's why the question I said, where does she want to travel and where do you want to travel? And if a month from now, and again, please don't talk to her today. Take what I've said, think about it for a month, see what you agree with, see what you disagree with. But if a month from now, you think, you know what, I really want this thing to go somewhere, then talk to her and say, honey, you're not getting any younger. I'm not yet getting younger. I love you. I've shown you that in every way. I want to marry you and I want to have babies with you. You don't want to do that because we want to travel. Okay. Let's make a list. Where are the places that we want to travel? And make that list and then get it done. And your job is in 2026, every place on that list is checked off. And you've got to find out in a focused way, is that actually the thing going on? Because if you can check off the list of the travel destinations and she still doesn't want to have a baby, then you need to go and release her. She can go and travel and you go find someone who wants to have a baby. But if that's just the list, then check the list off for her and then she'll fall into your arms. She say, let's do it. And you proceed forward on an expedited pathway. But you've got to give her enough time and you got to work with her. Your job as a man is to lead. And so that means that you have to study her and understand her and learn how to work with her. And as you become a better leader, she will grow in confidence with you. She'll adapt to you. She'll adjust. Her personality will change. Her interests will change. If you are a good man and a strong man and you hold your frame consistently over time, then there's high opportunity for the relationship. If there's not, you need evidence that there's not so that you can go on and move on with your life because you're not getting any younger. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. Feel free. I cut you off just because I don't want you to talk about her anymore. Feel free to respond if there's anything else. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. But you can. I don't want to cut you off. I just want to keep personal things personal. That's all.
Right. Yeah. I guess, if I'm understanding like the actionable steps here, more about, communication and trust. So communicating, trying to open up that conversation a bit more to better understand where each other are at. And then just building that trust that I am someone capable to have children with.
Right. One of the core elements of a good quality relationship is when a couple has good communication skills. Now, most people don't have that automatically. It takes some work, but for you to have a relatively conflict free or conflict light relationship, you want to have good communication skills. And I don't have a perfect marriage, but one of the things I really appreciate about is that my wife and I are able to communicate with each other well. And that's something that can be learned. And so you have to study her and you have to understand how to communicate well together. And you have to bring the communications to important things. So when you're 20, like I remember when I was young, I thought, man, it would be so scary to like get down on one knee and propose to a girl, because what if she says no? I thought this would be the scariest thing in life to propose to a woman. And I got older and I thought, this is ridiculous. Like nobody in the history of humanity is surprised by, that's probably not true. Okay. Very few people are surprised by a marriage proposal. Now, they might be surprised by the specific time, but you shouldn't be surprised by a marriage proposal. If you're surprising your girlfriend or fiance with a marriage proposal, you are doing it drastically wrong, because adults talk about important things, and marriage is one of the most important things. An adult who is jumping in and proposing to you without ever having discussed marriage, that's just ridiculous. And so you have to be able to talk about important things. And so you're being able to talk with her about marriage, being able to talk with her about children. If you can't communicate about that, you probably ought not get married, because you're lacking something in the relationships. You got to build that. So if that is a problem, if the communication is a problem, study it and work on it. I still stand by before my wife and I were married, we both read the books, or at least the first one, the book Crucial Conversations. And I recently bought a copy to give to a young person of that book. And I think it's as good as ever. Basically, communication skills, crucial conversations, talking about important conversations and important subjects in a safe way, I'm using the language of crucial conversations, in a way where you can genuinely listen to her. Because remember, that's your job, is not to tell her what to think and tell her and cut her off and everything. You need to understand what those things are. You need to understand what her fears are, why she doesn't want to have a baby. You need to know those things. You got to study her and be a really, really good student so that you can do that. I can predict. People ask me questions sometimes. Joshua, you do all this stuff and whatever. I just go ask my wife. I'll tell you what she'll say. Right? I know my wife through and through. I can predict with very high confidence what she'll say in the vast majority of things. And so when I just make plans, like I almost never ask my wife if she wants to do something. I just say, we're doing this thing. But that's not because I don't value her perspective. It's because I already know what it's going to be. So if I'm making a plan to say on Saturday, we're going to do this thing, and I just tell her, I'm not surprising her with something that she's not going to like. I've made the plan to do the thing because I know what she likes, and I've just made it happen. And so I don't need to go and ask my wife, well, do you want to go and do the thing? I'm not going to ask her. I already know she wants to do it, or I wouldn't have made the plan. If she didn't want to do it, I wouldn't do it. And so obviously there's times you go and say, do you want to do the thing? But my point is that you have to study her and understand, and then have important conversations. And so build your communication skills, because it should be relatively easy to talk about things like this in the context of a normal man and woman relationship. If it's not, you got to build more intimacy, build more security, build more safety, whatever it is, you got to work on that. So I'll stop talking. Dan, you got the last word, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah. I appreciate all that advice, and, yeah, I'll work on actioning it, and yeah, potentially call you back with next step.
Yeah. Call me back, and next time we'll take one of your other things when you don't feed me the obvious one that I'm going to start with, and we'll talk about how to be more productive in the office. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. I have enjoyed the conversation very much, and I look forward to keeping in touch. I just want to encourage you as we go that these things, you deserve to have what you want in life if you work for it. And a lot of times men, because we can't make babies, a lot of men sit around and kind of wait on women. Well, women are in a difficult spot right now, right? They got a lot of pressures, a lot of people saying, go this way, go that way, go the other way. If you're clear on what you want, which you were, right? You said, I want a baby. If you're clear on that, then you pressing forward and saying, I want to have a baby is a proper and right thing to do. You're not going to force anyone else to have a baby. You've done nothing morally wrong by being clear on what you want. And so she can decide what she wants. After all, she's a strong, independent modern woman. She can say what she wants and what she doesn't want. So you being clear on what you want is not something that you have to apologize for. If she's going to be a strong, modern, independent woman, she can say, I don't want that. I'm going to leave. Cool, go ahead, or some version of that. You're not forcing her, but you should be clear on what you want. And I think that most men don't want to be genocided. They don't want to be the last of their line. Some do, most don't. And most of the people listening to this show don't. And I did when I was younger, I was blind to how difficult it was. I'm not blind to that now. It is difficult. And this is something that deserves to be talked about. So I try to bring it up. I try to be the catalyst for conversation. If I give bad advice on it, I want to hear from what does work. But when I talk about these subjects with men, I take them seriously. And I say, if you picture yourself at the end of your life, you picture yourself on your 80th birthday, right? Not your deathbed. You picture yourself on your 80th birthday. What do you see there? And there are some guys who evidently only see their bank balance. Cool. That's not what I see. I'm a great admirer of Mitt Romney, right? Mitt Romney is a man who has it all. When you see a picture of him with his family and you see a picture of him and his bank balance, he's got it all. And to me, those are the kinds of men that we should be looking up to, we should be admiring, and we should be talking about. Because I think most men, if they could, would like to be someone like Mitt Romney. And they'll want the kinds of markers of success that a guy like that has. So let's talk about it, and let's be men who discuss these things and who talk about it and who make plans to achieve them. And let's not kind of whistle back and say, oh, well, you can't do it. And by the way, the data flipped. I forget, I can't cite the exact study, but there was a study recently that showed that more young men now, it was showing the political discrepancy between young men and young women. That if you ask young men what's the most important thing they want, they say, I want to have a child. And if you ask young women what they want, I don't remember what it was, but like having a child was number 5. All I'll say is those two things, something's got to change. And I think in time, some of the women may come back to wanting to have a baby, but if they don't, you got to go find a woman who does, because there's a lot of women in the world and you're not stuck with just who's around you. But in history, 80% of women have been able to reproduce. Most men haven't. And so I think we should pay attention to that. Thank you for listening to today's show. I'll just leave it as is. I should probably go back and edit this, but I'm just speaking from my heart. So hopefully, if you're still here, that's what you get. So if you'd like to join me on next week's show, go to patreon.com/radicalpersonalfinance, patreon.com/radicalpersonalfinance. That will gain access for you to one of these shows, and I will be back with you very soon. Thank you.